The snow fell in soft spirals, weightless as secrets, whitening the twilight courtyard of Winterfell until the flagstones vanished beneath a pale hush. Smoke from the smithy chimneys drifted in long gray ribbons that caught the ruddy glow of torches. Yet the hush seemed deeper than flame, more ancient than frost. Somewhere high upon the battlements the watch was changing, rust-flecked bells clanging a sleepy warning for all within to mind the night. Though beyond the walls the dark had already claimed the sky and laid its chill hands upon the wind. In that quiet, Wyllis stood alone beside the old weirwood, its sap-withered face bleeding red through the snow, and breathed in the cold as though it were truth itself. His vast shoulders strained the seams of his rough-spun tunic, but there was a stillness in him at odds with his size. He stepped lightly, mind soaring. He knew now, with a lucidity he had never possessed as the simple stable boy called Hodor, that every root of the gods would reach for something buried far beyond soil, an echo of ice deeper than winter, a pulse older than men. And he felt, too, the fracture that ran through the heart of the world like frozen glass, the thin place where time itself rasped and bled, trembling beneath footsteps yet to come. He pressed one enormous hand to the heart tree and closed his eyes. Whisper voices rustled the branches overhead, distant yet near, terrified yet unyielding. "Do you see us?" they asked. "Do you hear the fold of wings, the crack of old bones beneath the snow? Do you know the name we carried long before the Night King wore it?" "Yes," he thought with calm certain clarity. "I know, and I will speak." Footfalls disturbed the hush, soft leather on wet leaves. Wyllis opened his eyes to find Bran Stark, slight and pale, rolling across the godswood in a hand-pushed chair of dark oak. Mira Reed guided him, her brow knit in cautious greeting. Beside them padded the direwolf Summer, fur silvered by frost, steam curling from his muzzle. "Wyllis," Bran said, voice thin as the falling snow. "It's late. Maester Wolkan fears the fever might return if you spend too long in the cold." Wyllis turned. The last of the half-hidden moonlit innocence that once softened his gaze was gone. What burned there now was sharp with comprehension. "I am well, my lord, better than well." He hesitated, tasting the strange fullness of his own language. "Do you remember the day we left for the cave beyond the wall? The day you first reached into me?" Bran's hand tightened on the armrest. "I remember enough. You carved a door through my mind to shield yourself." Wyllis bent, plucked a perfect snowflake from the air, and let it melt against his fingertip. A door that held one word. Now the word is broken, and the door stands open both ways. Mira glanced at Bran uneasily. "Is that truly a blessing?" "It must be," Wyllis answered, "for the breach offers warning. The Night King's shadow lengthens even as we speak, passing through histories like ice through flesh. If we do not act, if we cling to old fears, Winterfell will fall before the first new moon of spring." Silence hung between the three of them until Summer bristled and growled, as though echoing the unspoken dread. Bran swallowed. "Tell me what you see." Wyllis let his gaze drift beyond the godswood, beyond the keep, beyond the living world. Threads of light stretched like harpstrings across a void of glittering frost. He touched one in thought, and it thrummed with impossible visions. A ring of weirwood faces burning blue, an army of dead men shifting like a tide across tundra, a boy once named Craster's son, eyes aflame with inhuman promise. And at the center, the Night King himself, no rustic legend but a creature wrought from shattered vows and weirwood sap, a sovereign over the geometry of cold. Wyllis watched that monarch raise his hands as if conducting the silence, watched the uncounted thousand corpses heed his gesture, and watched, too, the thin fissure beneath his heel, a weakness no one yet understood, a rhythm of blood and memory that could be broken. "Words alone cannot show it," Wyllis said at last, voice low with awe. "But know this truth, he is neither living nor dead. He is the wound we opened the day the first men broke the pact and stole fire from the children. He is time's punishment given shape." Bran's eyes, milk blue and cavernous, fixed on Wyllis. "Is there a way to end him?" "There is," Wyllis breathed, "and it lies not beyond the wall but within the roots beneath our feet." The Night King feeds upon the wheel of history repeating, upon endless wars, endless betrayals. Break the wheel where it first was forged, and you starve him. Speak plainly, Mira implored. The crypts, Wylus answered. The bones of the kings of winter hold more than dust. They hold stories unfinished, promises unkept. The Night King's true name is buried among them, hidden in runes older than the Starks themselves. If we find the name and speak it beneath the heart tree, his power will wane. Bran's lips parted with dawning horror. A name of death, a name of unmaking. Thunder rolled far to the north. Not summer thunder, but the hollow crack of ice splitting deep within glaciers. Wylus knew the sound foretold movement. Whites stirring in barrow mounds, spear tips shimmering under stars too dim to judge mankind. He straightened, brushing snow from his sleeves. There is little time. Tomorrow we go below. Yet morning revealed a castle already trembling with rumor. Word of Wylus's midnight proclamation had seeped through drafty corridors and into servant hearts. The gentle giant, now fluent, now mysterious, spoke of doom in flawless syllables, unnerving all who had long relegated him to harmless simplicity. Cooks whispered as they kneaded bread. Grooms eyed the stable-yard with fretful wonder. Even Ser Roderick, mustaches gray with frost, found himself pausing mid-drill to listen for echoes of marching dead. Within the great hall, the hearth roared. Sansa Stark presided over the long table with the composure of a queen in all but name. She listened as Bran repeated Wylus's claim, while Arya leaned against a pillar, eyes narrowed to slits, and Jon Snow, Lord Commander no more, but returned from Dragonstone bearing alliances too fragile to name, paced the floor. "So you are certain?" Sansa said softly, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "The Night King may be bound by a name?" Bran nodded. "If Wylus says it, I believe it. I've traveled the currents of time myself, sister. Some truths are older than our doubts." Tormund Giantsbane snorted, shaking snow from his beard. "Aye, and some truths walk on two legs and *T on gold cloaks." Arya smirked, but Jon raised a gloved hand. "Mock later. Decide now." He turned to Wylus, who stood at the foot of the table like a granite sentry. "Will the crypts tell us enough?" "Yes," Wylus said, clear as a polished bell. But the runes were carved in dragon steel, visible only to light born of flame and sorcery. "All the dragon glass we have is in blades," Jon responded, "and the only true flame-born light is that of dragons," murmured Sansa. Across Jon's mind flickered the great black wings of Drogon and the smaller, fiercer silhouette of Rhaegal. He felt again the heat of Melter Stone, saw Daenerys' silver-pale hair in the storm of ash above King's Landing. But Drogon had carried her east, into legend, and Rhaegal lay entombed beneath waters off Pike. There were no dragons in Winterfell, but there was someone else. Melisandre, red-robed, her gaze like embers beneath shadow. She lingered near the hall's archway, a silent witness to every council but seldom invited to speak. At Jon's hesitant glance, she stirred. "Light without dragon fire exists," she said, voice soft yet resonant. "The Lord of Light's kiss can bear secrets etched in darkest stone. Allow me passage into the crypts, and I will conjure a glow to pierce all stealth." Murmurs burst like flocked birds. Davos Seaworth stepped forward, face as weathered as old timber. "We have trusted your flames before, my lady, and paid dearly for their warmth." Melisandre lowered her eyes. "I will carry that sin until my bones join the dust. Yet the dead do not quibble with atonement. They march." Wylus nodded. "Her light will serve, but someone must stand ready to close the door behind the truth once we open it. The Night King will feel his name stir." "I'll do it," Arya said at once. "Arya," Sansa began, but Arya shook her head. "I've danced with death before. Let him hear my steps." Jon gripped Arya's shoulder, searching her eyes. Then he gave a small, resigned nod. "We go tonight." Evening's first star gleamed above the broken towers as a procession of torches wound toward the crypt entrance. Snow hissed where the flames met air, and wolves howled from distant kennels. Wylus led, his strides unhurried, his breath steady. Behind him crept Bran in his chair, pushed this time by Podrick Payne, followed by Melisandre, Arya, Jon, and Davos. Last came Mira and a pair of grim, spear-bearing guards. The stone mouth yawned wide, its steps slanting downward. As they descended, torches guttered against dampness, and the carved likenesses of Stark lords loomed from darkness, their gray granite faces serene under crowns of hoarfrost. When they reached the chamber where Lyanna Stark lay, Melisandre halted. She raised her hands, red sleeves falling away from scar-thin wrists, and whispered words older than the Seven. Her torch flared, white at its core, and the rune stones embedded in the walls sparked alive. An argent web across the crypt, lines of fire racing into patterns incomprehensible yet magnetic. Wylus stepped forward, his towering shadow stretched across the glowing sigils. He brushed one rune with a fingertip, and light rippled outward, coalescing into shapes that hovered above the bier. Circles within circles, and at their heart an angular glyph that pulsed like a heartbeat. He was once called Ice-Forged in the tongue of the children, Wylus murmured, but in the speech of men, his name is Nervalor. Speak it not outside these walls, lest he hear. Bran's voice quivered. We must use the name to bind him. Use it, Melisandre said, eyes shining in firelight, or be devoured by it. All power demands balance. Jon took a step. The ancient glyph glared at him like an eye. If we fail, then the wall will fall, Winterfell will burn, and the long night will devour dawns yet unborn. A tremor passed through the crypt. Dust sifted from the ceiling. Arya unsheathed needle, its thin edge casting a ghost blue light. He's listening, she said. Wylus closed his eyes. In the dark behind his lids, he saw the Night King pause upon a frozen ridge, tilting his horned crown as though alerted. In the hush of timeless stars, their gazes locked through distance measured in nightmares. Wylus felt cold seep into his bones, yet refused to flinch. He opened his eyes, luminous with resolve. We are heard, but we are not yet undone. Melisandre's flame dimmed to a steady white glow, and the runes settled like beating hearts slowed to careful watchfulness. Wylus spoke the glyph syllables once more, softly, shaping them with a scholar's precision. The stones beneath his feet vibrated. The crypt walls shivered. Outside, the last of the light vanished beneath clouds heavy with snow. Now, Wylus said, we must carve his name upon a blade of weirwood sap and dragonglass. The wound must be crossed at the breach where flesh meets memory. And we must do it before sunrise of the day after tomorrow, or the name will sink beneath the river of time again, lost for generations. Jon's jaw tightened. We barely have a night. We have as long as courage outlasts fear, Wylus replied. And courage is rooted in truth, not in strength. A second tremor, stronger, shook loose a cascade of pebbles. The guards exchanged fearful glances. Wylus turned, his voice suddenly booming. Steel your hearts. The cold advances, but so do we. Above ground, the courtyard erupted in chaos. Ravens wheeled overhead, screeching with unnatural fury. The hot black iron of Winterfell's reforged gates groaned under an unseen strain, as though hundreds of icy fists hammered from the other side. Tormund and Brienne marshaled the outer walls. Archers lined parapets with arrowheads tipped in dragon glass. Ghost bounded through drifting snow, fur bristling, crimson eyes fixed on the darkening timberline. In the great hall, Sansa barked commands to terrified servants, sending them scurrying with blankets and boiled wine. Children of Winterfell were shepherded below stairs, their cries echoing like gulls on an empty shore. Outside the Godswood, Samwell Tarly clutched an armful of tomes fetched from the library, his breath forming frantic clouds. Gilly clung to his cloak, face pale. The wind sings of death, she whispered, trembling. The same as Craster's keep, the same as before. Sam nodded mutely. Only days ago he believed he had escaped that frozen despair. Yet the song returned, and with it, every fragile hope seemed suddenly brittle. But atop the battlements, An improbable clarion call pierced the night. Wyles's voice, unmistakably calm, commanding. "Hold your lines. The dead fear not blade or bow, what they fear is truth. We are that truth." Men and women paused, astonished. Hodor, no, Wyles, speaking with the cadence of a maester? They watched him stride along the ramparts, Bran riding at his side, Melisandre pacing behind, the flame of her torch unspilled by wind. And somewhere beyond the shroud of falling snow, a horn blew 3 times. Not the aged brass of Castle Black, but something deeper, older, reverberating across every stone in Winterfell. It was a greeting, a threat, and a promise all at once. The long night had sent its herald. Far north atop an ice-splintered ridge, the Night King stood motionless, cloak rippling like a relic flag over an empire of silence. His eyes blazed blue, yet within them flickered a spark of wary recognition. A name, newly spoken, drifting across centuries to touch his withered heart. Nervalor, the echo whispered, the lock unpicked, the door ajar. He lifted a hand, fingers pale as bone under moonlight, and the dead of countless Barrow Hills stirred. From ruined castles they came, armored in rust and sorrow. From frozen lakes they rose, dripping knives of ice. From the choking snows of Skagos and the ragged peaks of the Frostfangs they marched, their ranks unbroken by time or mercy. Dragons of ice soared above them, wings crystalline, shrieking with voices like shattered mirrors. The Night King listened to the murmured syllables of his name dissolving upon the wind. For the first time in eons, a sliver of hunger, no of unease, touched him. A name is a tether, and tethers can be cut. He turned his gaze southward, toward the weak glow of Winterfell, and smiled a smile devoid of flesh. Let them try, that smile seemed to say. Let them pronounce my truth. In the end, all tongues freeze, all fires die, and all doors shut. But far below, a door once named Hodor now stood open forever. Open to wisdom, to grievous memory, to hope. And hope is the one guest winter has never quite learned to kill. Throughout the night, Hodor Wyles walked the ramparts, memorizing each battlement, each kill zone, each frail wooden gantry that might succumb to flame or frost. His genius, awakened and sharpened, seized upon patterns of defense the Starks had long ignored. He sent blacksmiths to pour buckets of water along the inner parapets, forming ice runnels that could trip climbing wights. He ordered casks of lamp oil buried under snowdrifts to be sparked only when the undead reached their zenith, ensuring walls of sudden inferno. He positioned archers on staggered tiers, low, high, low, so their crossfire would harvest undead ranks like wheat beneath a reaper's blade. At dawn's first gray hint, he gathered Jon, Sansa, Arya, and Davos at the hall's great hearth. The map before them bore marks in crimson ink. Circles around the Godswood, the inner bailey, the blacksmith's yard. "We faced 3 assaults," Wyles said, voice unflagging despite a night without sleep. "A vanguard of dead men. Mostly wildlings and Old Watch brothers raised in the last fortnight, will strike the main gate by dusk. Shortly after, giants will batter the east wall. When the breach is made, the Night King's lieutenants will ride through the Godswood to seize the Heart Tree." "How can you know their order?" Davos asked, brow furrowed. "I watched them as a stable boy watches stallions," Wyles replied. "Their minds grind in loops, predictable, because they are bound to one intent, annihilation." "Then what of the Night King himself?" Jon asked. "He comes only when victory is certain, or when his name is wielded. The moment we brandish Nervalor upon the blade, he will come for us." Sansa leaned over the map, "which means we must prepare a killing ground within the Godswood itself." Arya's mouth quirked, a silent place to whisper his ending.
Jon met Wyles kees.
"We forged the weapon today." The giant nodded. "Dragonglass for the core, weirwood sap for the binding. My hands are steady, and the forge is hot." Outside, the wind shifted, bringing with it a chill sweeter than death, the scent of destinies colliding. Somewhere beyond the northern treeline, 1,000 pairs of dead eyes blinked awake. But inside Winterfell, fires sprang up, ropes were pulled taut, blades sharpened, hearts steeled. And all the while, Wylis's voice carried hope from lip to ear, lifting spirits like banners in a rising storm. Once he had spoken only Hodor, a single syllable that bore all his joy and pain. Now he spoke of strategies, of histories, of the fragile arithmetic of survival. Yet beneath every word flowed an older truth. Doors are meant to open, and what lies behind them may yet save the world. When the forge bell rang, ringing iron against iron, Jon and Arya arrived to find Wylis stripped to the waist, arms gleaming with sweat, guiding molten glass into a channel of dragonbone set within a slender haft of polished weirwood. Runes glowed faintly along the wood's pale grain, Melisandre's work, kissed by her white flame. Wylis murmured the Night King's name into the mixture, sealing each syllable inside the crucible of cooling glass. A hiss rose like wind over deep fjords. Blue sparks danced, then vanished. When at last he lifted the blade, it shone with an inner light, angling gold and ice at once, singing softly of ending and beginning. Arya reached toward it, but Wylis shook his head. Not yet. It must taste air only when it tastes his heart. Jon nodded somberly. Then we keep it hidden. Wylis wrapped the blade in black leather and handed it to Arya. You will wield it. But remember, a genius's gift is not knowledge. It is restraint. Strike only when truth demands. Arya's gray eyes glittered. Truth has always known my point. They gripped each other's arms, small and lithe meeting vast and muscled, yet equals in resolve. Overhead, the sky dimmed though the sun had only begun its climb. A cold green pall crept across the horizon, the aurora of the dead, heralding winter's darkest claim. The day had come. Nightfall saw Winterfell wrapped in pale fire, its torches burning high, its banners rippling like living blood. Snow tumbled thick as feathers amid the blaze, but nothing muffled the distant thunder of marching dead. They appeared first as black specks upon the northern ridge, then as a wave, ragged, glinting with frost-rimmed armor, breaking against a shore of stone. Giants lum. Red behind them, and above, the ice dragons shrieked. Upon the outer wall, Wylis watched the oncoming tide and spoke a single command, "Loose!" Thousands of arrows hissed through snow fog, their dragon-glass heads aglow in torchlight. Undead fell, riddled yet more pressed forward. When they reached the oil-soaked troughs, torchbearers tossed firepots. Snow erupted in roiling sheets of flame, painting blue shadows orange. Still the dead surged, climbing the burning bodies of their own. Giants slammed against the east wall, and stone groaned. Hammers rained down, felling one, two. But a third giant seized a log thick as a mast and smashed a breach wide enough for 20 men abreast. Now, Wylis roared, and the hidden oil casks burst, turning the courtyard into a storm of liquid embers. Yet the whites walked through fire unharmed, their withered flesh too dead to care. From the godswood came Melisandre's voice, singing in the old tongue. White flame rose above the branches, swirling into a spear of light that pierced the sky. For an instant the dead faltered, confusion flickering in hollow eyes. Jon, sword drawn, pushed through defenders to reach Wylis. We can't hold them here. Fall back to the heart tree. Wylis nodded once. Sound the retreat. The horn blew, and living men withdrew in ragged ranks toward the inner bailey. Wylis lifted Bran's chair effortlessly, carrying the boy king toward the godswood while Arya slipped into the shadows, the secret blade pressed flat against her thigh. Snow became ash, ash became snow. The line between heat and cold blurred into a haze of screams. Yet in the center of chaos, Wylis's eyes burned steady. He whispered calculations under his breath, angles of approach, load of timber gates, arc of falling ice, seeing the field as a board of living numbers. He placed soldiers where ghouls would break, lit fires where wind would carry flame into undead bowstrings, collapsed walkways just as giants stepped onto them. He died a dozen deaths in his mind each second, subtracting possibilities until only survival remained. Still the Night King did not appear. Wylis felt the moment choose itself, The enemy waited for certainty. Only the name would draw him. At the base of the heart tree, Melisandre traced a circle of flame around the hollow where Bran now sat, eyes rolled back in wargsight. The circle blazed white, lighting the snowbanks like dawn. When Jon arrived with Ghost beside him, he met Wylis's gaze. "We're ready." Wylis looked to Arya. She emerged from the gloom like a shadow given shape, blade unwrapped, glimmering with caged starlight. "A name forged," she said, "a heart waiting, and above them all, the night split with a roar like worlds colliding. Ice dragons banked hard, wings cracking the sky. Between them descended the Night King, born by winds that kneel to no mortal king. He alighted upon broken earth with a sound like shattering glass, and the snow around his boots sank into sudden crystal frost. Wylis stepped forward, unarmed, unbowed. "Ner Valor," he called, each syllable a hammer striking iron. "I name you a wound, and I bind you." The Night King's smile died. He raised a hand, but before he could summon death, Arya leapt, faster than a breath, blade arcing for the breach where memory met flesh, and time itself seemed to slow. Bran's eyes glowed. Melisandre's flame surged. Jon's sword flashed in reflex, deflecting an ice lance meant for Arya's back. Ghost lunged at a white. The heart tree wept shimmering red sap. Wylis's mind raced, guiding every motion along vectors of fate. Arya's blade struck true, piercing the Night King's palm, and the ancient glyph blazed white within the glass. The Night King screamed, a sound like all winter howling at once. Cracks raced up his arm, across his chest, through the horned crown. For a heartbeat, victory gleamed in rising shards of ice. But the Night King turned his gaze upon Wylis, and in that gaze lay centuries of sorrow, fury, betrayal. He spoke without words. "I remember the door. I remember how you held it." Ice flowered from the wound, racing down Arya's blade toward her hand. Wylis saw the future in that instant. Arya frozen, the blade shattered, the spell broken, winter triumphant. So he moved. He seized Arya by the wrist, hurling her aside even as the ice reached him. He climbed his arm in crystalline armor, locking muscles, shattering bone. Yet still he held the blade. Still he drove it deeper into the Night King's chest. "Ner Valor," Wylis roared, voice breaking the night. "I name you ended." Light erupted in a column that split the heavens. When the glare faded, snow fell again. Light, innocent, ordinary. The Night King was gone, a sculpture of ice dust collapsing into nothing. The whites beyond the wall crumbled, and the giants slumped, lifeless husks. Ice dragons shattered mid-air into glittering storms. But Wylis knelt frozen, his form encased in glassed frost. His eyes, bright a moment ago with genius, now stared sightless through the ice. Arya crawled to him, tears freezing on her cheeks. She touched his unmoving hand. "Hold the door," she whispered, voice broken. "You always hold the door." Light moved behind the ice, subtle, pulsing. Jon approached, brow furrowed. Inside the frozen shell, a glow spread from Wylis's chest. The same glow that once limned the Night King before he shattered. "Get back," Jon warned, pulling Arya away. Cracks spider-webbed the ice, and with a ringing chime it burst outward. Wylis gasped, drawing air as if tasting life anew. The frost slid from his skin like tears, and he stood, taller, stronger, eyes glowing gold. Melisandre dropped to one knee. "The door stands open both ways," she murmured. "Life has passed through." Wylis looked down at his hands, flexing fingers unbroken. "I am free," he whispered, then louder. "The wheel is broken. Winter stands at bay." Bran's voice rode the wind. "For now," Wylis nodded. "For now, but hope has teeth, and we will sharpen them." So winter fell silent that night, beaten back not by kings or dragons, but by the mind of a giant once thought simple. In halls where snow still drifted through shattered windows, the living mourned their dead and whispered a new legend of the genius who spoke truth to the Night King and lived. of doors opened and wounds healed, and beyond the wall, where silence reigned, new roots stirred beneath the ice, sipping moonlight, dreaming of spring. The wind crooned through the broken merlons like a ghost too tired to moan, stroking the fires that still licked at patches of half-melted snow. Winterfell breathed again, ragged, aching, alive, yet every breath carried the taste of burnt oil and blood. Dawn never quite came. Instead, a wash of sullen gray seeped across the sky, revealing the ruin left in the Night King's wake. Bodies, some dead a second time, some dead only once, lay in heaps that steamed faintly where dragonglass wounds smoldered. Ravens circled, uneasy, as if unsure whether this battlefield truly belonged to them. Wylus moved among the fallen with deliberate care. He lifted shattered shields, righted toppled carts, and eased broken timbers from the limbs of men who would live if given a chance. He spoke to each wounded soul, voice calm, precise, a balm upon agony. At first the soldiers flinched, hearing reason flow from lips once limited to a single name, but soon they recognized the steadiness beneath those words and let it carry them. Lanterns guttered as he passed. The faint gold glow seemed to bow toward him, as though acknowledging a new lord of light that was not born of flame. Near the charred mouth of the breach, Arya Stark crouched over a mound of ice dust, the only remnant of the Night King's blade, and let the fine powder slide through her fingers. She watched it scatter on the wind, an afterthought of terror. The secret weapon she had carried now hung at her hip, its dragonglass core still faintly luminous, but she felt no triumph, only the hollow echo of something almost lost. The moment Wylus had seized her and thrust her clear of the Night King's frost seemed to beat on inside her chest like a second heart. It frightened her more than the battle itself. She had never asked to be saved. Steps crunched behind her. Jon Snow knelt, resting a gauntlet hand on her shoulder. Neither spoke. There was nothing to say, yet everything to feel. They stared eastward where the sun should have risen bright, and both understood that victory was only a pause in a tale older than their bloodlines. Inside the great hall, the lords of the north gathered beneath the torn direwolf banner, its edges charred by stray ember. Sansa presided at the high table, flanked by Davos and Brienne, while Mira poured watered wine for thirsty captains. Melisandre stood apart, the last of her white flame dwindling to a quiet ember at the tip of her staff. Across from her, Samwell Tarly laid scrolls upon a rush-strewn floor, tracing routes to the shattered watchtowers that once guarded the wall. Wylus entered last, ducking beneath the lintel, still dusted with frost. He paused, feeling every eye upon him, some awed, some wary, none indifferent. He inclined his head to Sansa. All wounded are with the maester or in makeshift wards. The dead have been accorded watchfires. By sunset, we will have pits dug beyond the ridge, far enough to keep the scent from dogs and hearts alike. Sansa nodded, voice measured. "Thank you, Wylus." Then, to the gathered captains, "Tell me the count." Ser Roderick rose, his mustaches singed. 132 dead, my lady, many from the breach. Wounded exceed 300, but most will mend. He hesitated. Losses among the free folk are heavier. They fought at the vanguard alongside Tormund's men. Davos added, but every giant fell with a dozen dead whites in its wake. Without them, we would have yielded the courtyard before dawn. Murmurs rippled. Wylus spoke above them, not loud, yet the room stilled. Courage wrote the ledger in our favor, but courage alone will not keep the next page blank. The Night King is dust, but the wound he symbolized remains. Already I sense tremors beneath the snows to the far north, echoes of power seeking a new shape. Bran, wheeled beside the hearth, opened eyes clouded with vision. I saw the same. The Song of Ice remembers its verse, even when the singer is gone. Shards of his consciousness cling to the frozen rivers beyond the shivering sea, coiling around memory like ivy. Melisandre's staff crackled softly. Such shards can bloom into dark flowers if left unpruned. Jon leaned forward, palms flat upon the table. Then we must ride north again, before new terror takes root. No, Wylus said, gentle but firm. We must root terror out where it hides beneath our very feet. He turned, gesturing to Sam's scrolls. Long before the wall was raised, before men called themselves Stark or Umber, the children etched their lore into stone deep beneath these crypts. The glyph we unearthed, the Night King's true name, was but the first stanza. Down there lie entire verses describing the cycle of cold and thaw, of wrong and atonement. If we decode them fully, we may learn what truly severs the long night's return. Sansa clasped her hands. The crypts are vast. We searched only a fraction. She glanced at Bran. Can your sight lead us? Some, Bran answered, voice thin as drifting ash. But the farther I reach from the living wood, the more the past resists. Memory twists upon itself, like roots strangling roots. Then we join sight to scholarship, Wylus said, looking to Sam. And scholarship to flame, he finished, nodding at Melisandre. Sam's eyes widened. He had spent nights translating Septon chronicles. Yet the notion of descending again into those black corridors stirred dread and excitement in equal parts. I'll need rubbing cloth, ink, fresh torches, and volunteers, Brienne interjected. No scholar should tread the deep crypts without steel beside him. Arya lifted a hand.
Igo kropka.
So do I, said Jon. Tormund echoed. Giant's Bane never shirked a dark hole that might hide an adventure. Sansa rose, palms spread in command. Then it is decided. We rest till midday, bury our dead at dusk, and at first watch the crypt expedition begins. Meanwhile we send ravens to every bannerman. Winterfell stands, the Night King is no more, for now, but all must fortify. She met each captain's gaze. Hope is precious, but we will not sell illusions. A murmur of assent filled the hall. Wylus watched the assembly break apart, instructions spreading like wildfire, and felt a quiet pride. Not in war won, but in order restored. Still, under pride lurked urgency. The song was not ended. Merely a single verse resolved. Ghost padded beside Jon across the God's Wood toward the freshly dug burial ridge. Shovels bit earth while pyres smoked blue in the cold light. Jon's eyes were rimmed red. He had presided over too many funerals. Castle Black, Hardhome, Long Barrow, King's Landing, and each new mound bore echoes of all the rest. He paused before a bier where a young spearwife lay peaceful, face powdered with ash, a dragonglass shard still clutched in her fist. Jon bent, pried the shard free, and slipped it into a pouch on his belt. Wylus approached from behind. Tokens burden a living heart, he said. Jon straightened. Sometimes burden reminds us to stand. True. Wylus's gaze moved from the corpse to the row of full pyres. Yet hearts can bear only so much weight before they sink. I fear yours nears that threshold. Jon sighed, watching snow swirl on ghostly wings. I once took solace in duty. Now duty feels like a millstone. The North sees me as savior, the South as traitor, the free folk as comrade, and still I wake each morning wondering where I belong. You belong where your choices matter, Wylus replied. In that, you are already home. Jon half smiled. Your insight does not ease the ache, but it helps me breathe. He hesitated. What of you? Moments ago you spoke like a prince of maesters, but I remember a gentle giant who carried my brother upon his back. I remember him too, Wylus said softly. I am still that giant. Only now the door in my mind no longer bars the view. I see possibilities vast, terrifying, wondrous, and I see the price of letting them pass unshaped. Jon studied him. Many will not understand your change. They need not understand, only trust. Wylus bent, scooping a fistful of snow to sprinkle over the spearwife's hands. Trust grows where truth is shown, not hidden. I will speak plainly, act wisely, and let them judge. Ghost sniffed the snow at Wylus's boots, then wagged his white tail once. Jon chuckled. Ghost knows good men. He offered his arm. Wylus clasped it. In the unspoken pact of warriors, they found fellowship renewed. Midday dulled to slate gray. Dusk followed swift, veiling the pyres in violet smoke. By the time the first watch horn blew, Winterfell's walls shone with new hoisted lanterns, their brass casings polished, their wicks fed with fragrant oil. The courtyard echoed with iron on iron as every hinge, latch, and chain was tested. At the crypt entrance, Sam adjusted the leather strap of a satchel heavy with scroll tubes. Jon and Arya checked the fastenings on their cloaks. Tormund slung a spiked club across his back. Brienne carried a shield freshly scoured of soot. Melisandre's staff glowed a gentle white. Wylis emerged last, bearing a newly forged lantern whose panes were carved from translucent obsidian. The black glass captured Melisandre's light, amplifying it into a keen radiance. Podrick and Mira were to guard the entrance with a squad of spearmen. Sansa stood with Bran in his chair, watching as torches were lit. She spoke quietly to her brother. Bran only nodded, eyes distant. Wylis addressed the party. "We go deep, none stray. We mark every turn. If any glyph or passage speaks to you, call out. Words may shift when read by different eyes." Tormund grinned. "I'm more used to splitting skulls than spelling, but I can spot a death trap in the dark." Arya smirked. "Just don't spring it before the rest of us see." They descended single file. Cold damp air swallowed each step. The world above narrowed to a pinprick glow as the crypt swallowed them. The deeper levels of the crypts had not felt footfall in centuries. Dust lay thick as silt, disturbed only by the occasional rat tunnel. Melisandre's staff cast stark shadows. Statues of unnamed kings, swords rusted to ruddy streaks, weirwood roots that curled through fissures like pale serpents. Far below, a faint trickle of water echoed, a reminder that time carves stone without haste. Sam spread parchment across a sarcophagus lid, rubbing charcoal over chiseled grooves to capture runes half-worn by moisture. Jon stood lookout, flanked by Brienne and Tormund. Arya explored flank passages, leaving chalk marks shaped like slender daggers. Wylis washed newly revealed glyphs with a soft brush, deciphering strokes older than the common tongue. Hours passed in whispered study. They uncovered a panel of slate depicting a circle of weirwoods around a ring of men. Underneath, lines of script spiraled inward toward a symbol of intertwined ice and flame. Melisandre traced a finger over the spiral. "This is Valyrian in root, but twisted by children's script. It speaks of a covenant forged in the gray minute, between seed of tree and seed of fire, to guard the turning of the sky." Sam's breath caught. The gray minute, that's lore older than the long night, a moment when dawn and dusk met in the same heartbeat. Wylis nodded. A hinge of ages. The covenant likely birthed both the wall and the prophecy of its fall. "We must keep reading." They cleared rubble from a collapsed arch to reveal steep steps spiraling deeper still. Frost rimed the stone, glittering oddly in Melisandre's light. Tormund tapped a stair with his club. A clean note rang. "Ice crust. Thick. Ain't natural this far south. Nor this far underground," Brienne added. Arya's blade skated over the railing, flicking frost that fell upward. A snow flurry drawn toward the ceiling. "Even gravity forgets itself," she muttered. Jon inhaled the air. Colder, but smells empty. He raised his torch. "Wylis!" The giant stepped onto the stair, lantern held high. The obsidian panes absorbed the frostlight, revealing faint streaks in the ice, whirls shaped like screaming faces. "We near the heart of memory," he said. "The dead of ancient wars whisper through the stone. They do not harm unless we awaken resentment." Tormund snorted. "Best keep them sleeping, then." Down they went, each step measuring time backward. Finally, the stair spat them into a cavern vast as Winterfell's great hall. Its walls were plates of translucent blue ice, veined by roots that pulsed faintly crimson. Life trapped in crystal. At the center stood a monolith of black stone, twice Wylis's height, surface carved with spirals that seemed to move beneath their gaze. Arya exhaled a silvery plume. "What is it?" "The Dawnstone," Melisandre whispered. "A relic of fire frozen by grief. I had thought it myth."
Sam approached, awestruck.
He brushed frost aside to reveal a mosaic of runes. Some here resemble Old Tongue, others High Valyrian, and some, 7 save me, look like symbols in Maester Eamon's Dragon Dream manuscripts. Wylus set his lantern at the base. The spirals illuminated, lines racing like molten silver. He pressed a hand to the stone. It responds to life, he breathed. Not blood sacrifice, but living will. The spirals halted, forming a wide ring. At its center an eye opened, nothing physical Oved, yet every mind present felt awareness. A voice, neither male nor female, neither sound nor thought, filled them. Who holds memory? They froze. Jon's jaw tightened. Arya gripped her hidden blade. Brienne raised her shield. Tormund swallowed. Wylus answered, calm. We do, children of fire and frost, seekers beyond fear. Why disturb the seal of the Grey Minute? The voice asked. Melisandre stepped forward, eyes bright. Because the Covenant phrase, the Night King is dust, yet his echo hunts new flesh. We would mend the breach. Name what was given, the voice commanded. Name what was broken. Sam drew a trembling breath. Given. The wall wrought of ice and magic, the watch of night and day, the promise of men to guard against the dark. His voice faltered. Broken, greed, pride, the killing of tree and child, the forgetting of names. Silence followed. The crimson roots brightened. The ice walls humming like distant bees. Finally the voice spoke. Then we've anew the vow. One life in exchange for passage. One truth in exchange for power. One seed in exchange for dawn. Jon stepped forward. Explain. But the voice did not elaborate. The eye closed. The spirals dimmed. The cavern chilled. Tormund cursed. Bloody riddles. Wylus bowed his head. A bargain of ancestors. It demands sacrifice. Life, truth, seed. Only then may we learn how to sever winter's resurgence. Arya spat a filament of frost. We've sacrificed plenty. Must we offer more blindly? Melisandre's gaze lingered on Wylus. Life freely given shapes magic purer than blood spilled in war. The stone asks no slaughter. It asks a gift. Brienne frowned. Whose life? And what truth? Sam pored over the runes again. Here, the life must bear memory unclouded. The truth must be one the world denies. The seed must root where fire once fell. He looked up. It's poetic but damning. Jon paced, bootsteps echoing. Memory unclouded, Bran? But he's integral. His eyes landed on Wylus. Your mind opened by sacrifice. Would giving your life seal the bargain? Wylus met Jon's stare. Perhaps, but life offered need not end in death, only in transformation. When I held the Night King's frost, I crossed beyond life's edge and returned. That gateway remains within me. I could enter it again. Hand my life to the Covenant, not as corpse, but as conduit. Arya's voice rose sharp. We just regained you. I won't let you vanish into song. Wylus smiled gently. Song sustains the world, little wolf. If I become part of its music, I am not lost. Melisandre nodded. And the truth? She asked. Sam spoke, faltering. A truth the world denies. The Seven? He shook his head. No. Perhaps the Stark lineage? Or the prophecy of Azor Ahai. Jon stopped pacing. Or that the wall was never meant to stand forever. That men cling to it out of fear. Bran's voice drifted across their minds, though he had remained above. The greatest lie is that kingdoms divide us. The world is one body, wounded by its own limbs. Wylus absorbed this, lantern light glinting in his eyes. We will offer that truth. Tormund grunted. And the seed. Sam pointed at the crimson roots. Weirwood, but fused with dragon flame. A sapling born of 2 powers. He turned to Melisandre. Can your fire kindle seeds? My flame reveals. It does not create. She looked to Jon. A dragon's fire once touched you, Prince. You carry its echo. Jon's brow furrowed. Drogon's flames never burned me, but his heat. He hesitated. recalling the day he had climbed upon Regal's back, the furnace breath that washed past him harmless. He reached inside his tunic, drawing forth the dragonglass shard from the spearwife's fist. Glass born of dragon fire. If we carve a seed rune into this, plant it in the heart tree soil.
Sam nodded slowly.
Dragon glass contains frozen fire. Merged with weirwood sap, it might sprout something new. A dawn tree, Melisandre whispered, as if tasting prophecy. Wylus placed his lantern within the monolith's ring. Then the bargain may be met. My life as conduit, the united truth of kingdoms, and the seed carved from dragonglass and planted in the godswood. Brienne rested a gauntlet hand on Wylus's arm. We would lose you? Not lose. Change. He scanned their faces. I ask not for permission, only companionship on the path. Arya's shoulders tensed. Then she slid her hidden blade back into its sheath. If you walk it, we walk beside, until you turn into light. Jon clasped Wylus's forearm. We will prepare the seed. Tormund grinned sadly. And I'll guard your body from any dead rats while you float off to tree heaven. Wylus laughed, the sound deep as thunder but bright as bells. Then let us return. Dawn waits for no mortal quill. Back in the courtyard, Bran's chair faced the rising moon. Sansa knelt beside him, her red hair catching torch flame, telling him of each burial concluded. Bran listened with half a mind. The other half roamed far, seeing dragons roosting on forgotten valleys, Dothraki herds galloping free across snowless lands, and a crimson sail returning to Westeros bearing a silver-haired queen who had learned mercy in exile. He spoke softly. Tomorrow will ask more courage than tonight, sister. Yet you were born beneath a wolf's cry. You will answer. Sansa squeezed his hand. So will you. Their exchange ended when the crypt party emerged, faces solemn. Wylus explained the covenant in measured words. Sansa listened, rising to her full height. I will not command you against this, Wylus, but you must let the North know why. The North will see dawn, he answered. That is reason enough. Preparations began at once. Sam and Mira worked in the library to carve the dragonglass shard into a teardrop seed, etched with runes signifying union. Melisandre infused it with flame that burned white but cool, binding ice to fire. Arya fashioned a hollow in the heart tree's soil. Jon stood vigil, ghost at his side. Meanwhile, Wylus sat cross-legged in the Godswood's clearing, Bran before him. The boy reached into Wylus's mind, wading through memories, carrying grain, laughter among grooms, the horror of holding the door, the quantum clarity of genius awakening. Bran touched the threshold between waking and dream, smoothing the passage where Wylus would soon travel. Night deepened. Stars blinked through drifting cloud. The pyres outside the walls guttered low. At last Sam arrived with the dragonglass seed cradled in a velvet pouch. It glowed like captive dawn. Melisandre spoke first. Life for passage, truth for power, seed for sunrise. Are we ready? Jon looked to Sansa, who looked to Arya, who looked at Wylus. The giant nodded. Then begin, Melisandre said. Bran wheeled closer. Ghost lay at Jon's feet, ears twitching. Tormund leaned on his club. Brienne stood shield raised, though nothing threatened but possibility. Wylus held the seed. He placed it within the hollow beneath the heart tree's roots, covering it with fresh soil mixed with melting snow. He pressed both palms into the earth. Let life flow. Melisandre lifted her staff. White flame licked along the tree's bark, seeping downward like living veins. The ground under Wylus's hands warmed, then cooled, then thrummed. Wylus inhaled sharply. The world tilted, his vision blurred. He felt himself slipping, not dying, but untethering. Memories flared. His mother singing in the kitchens, Bran's laughter on his shoulders, the Night King's frost. Each image folded into light and drifted upward, weaving into the branches. Bran's voice guided him. You are not leaving. You are becoming. You are the door, both sides open. Wylus answered only in thought. I understand. His body sagged. Arya darted forward, catching him, lowering him gently. His eyes remained open, but golden light poured from them like sunrise through a broken wall. The heart tree's carved face brightened. Crimson sap flowed, mingling with the white flame into a radiant column that shot toward the sky. Everyone stepped back. The column's top burst into petals of multicolored light, greens and blues rarely seen in southern skies, an aurora bending into shapes of dire wolves and dragons intertwined, dancing round a blooming tree. Slowly the glow settled, sinking into the weirwood leaves. They shimmered silver for a heartbeat, then resumed their ordinary pallor. Silence blanketed the godswood. Snowflakes drifted again, gentle as breath. The glow vanished from Wylis's eyes. He blinked, looked around. He seemed smaller, yet somehow boundless. His flesh remained but appeared translucent, as though a second body of light overlapped him. He rose without effort. "I am still Wylis," he said, voice echoing like two choirs in harmony. "But I am also the covenant bearer." John released a breath he hadn't realized he held. "Does the bargain hold?" Wylis smiled. Above, the moon's pallor softened. A faint blush of gold tinged its rim, an omen unseen in living memory. "Dawn approaches," he whispered, "and with it new songs." 2 days passed. No undead stirred beyond fallen hills. Ravens carried news of Winterfell's stand to every corner. Sailors in White Harbor spoke of eerie lights over the castle. Shepherds near Moat Cailin found fields sprouting unseasonal crocus where snow had melted in perfect circles. Even beyond the Twins, travelers claimed nights felt less cruel. Within Winterfell, Wylis walked tirelessly, his lantern now dark. Light followed him naturally, pooling around his feet. He guided builders to reinforce the gatehouses, suggested irrigation for spring plantings, devised a lens of polished ice and crystal that captured sunlight to warm cold chambers. Children followed him, eyes wide, calling him wise giant. He answered each question patiently, delighting in their awe. Arya watched from a parapet, arms crossed. Jon joined her. "You doubt the miracle?" "Not doubt," she said, "but wonder how long miracles last before someone seeks to cage them." Jon glanced across the yard where nobles whispered, measuring Wylis's new power. "Caution is fair. We must shield him from ambition, ours and others." Arya's smile was thin. Ambition rarely asks permission. In the Great Hall, Sansa met with northern lords, reading ravens from the Vale, the Reach, even Dorne, each letter seeking assurance that the long night truly slept. She drafted proclamations announcing a conclave of Kingsmoot to be held midsummer at Winterfell, inviting fealties and grievances, but above all unity. She knew some would balk, yet the time for fractured thrones had ended. Bran convened nightly with Wylis under the Heart Tree. Together they mapped dreams. Islands of fiery glass beyond Valyria, a black goat city rising in Sithorios, comet shards buried beneath the Shadowlands. They pondered how each piece fit into the great will now cracking. Wylis proposed a council of memory keepers across cultures. Bran considered sending ravens to distant greenseers rumored among Ibben's forests. Melisandre prepared to depart. Her debts settled, her faith renewed. She would journey south to Volantis to share word of dawn with the Red Priests. Before leaving, she approached Jon in the courtyard. "You carry embers within," she told him. "One day they may blaze or consume. Guard them." Jon inclined his head. "And you, guard your zeal." She smiled. "Zeal is lighter than ash." Then she walked into drifting snow, vanishing before she reached the gate, as if Dawn's promise had claimed her first. But Dawn's promise carries shadows of its own. Far east, beyond the ruined city of Meereen, a lone dragon soared, black wings broad enough to blot stars. Upon its back, a woman with silver gold hair gazed westward, eyes reflecting distant lights. In her hand she held a fragment of obsidian shaped like a seed that pulsed faintly. She felt a tug in her chest, call of kin beyond seas, whispering of covenants old and new. She turned Drogon's course toward sunrise. Far north, beyond shattered ice lakes, something stirred under snow, not undead but unborn. A shard of blue crystal, larger than a man's skull, beat like a heart within a cavern of frost. It listened to the silence left by the Night King's end and answered with a booming echo. Neither life nor death, but possibility seeking shape. And in the ruins of old Valyria, deep beneath smoking crags, molten rivers lapped at a stone dais. Upon it lay 3 eggs, cracked but unbroken, veins of fire threading their shells. A breath moved within the cavern, hot, slow, measured, as though the world itself inhaled. Winterfell's dawn of the 4th day broke clear, sun rising unimpeded at last. Its rays touched the heart tree. Dew sparkled on new shoots sprouting at the base, pale green leaves edged with red veins.
Sam knelt, astonished.
The dawn tree, he whispered, fingertips trembling. It lives. Wyllis stood beside him, eyes bright. Seed for sunrise, and dawn has come. Jon approached, ghost at heel. The dire wolf sniffed the shoots, then settled contentedly. Let's hope the world shares Ghost's optimism, Jon said. It will, Wyllis replied, because we will nurture it. He looked to the sky where ravens wheeled, bearing letters of alliance and inquiry. He felt the rhythm of sap rising, of fire cooling, of ice melting into fertile water. He felt, too, distant tremors of forces awakening, but no longer did they feel inevitable. They felt like challenges awaiting answers. And answers were a genius's delight. Sansa crossed the godswood, parchment in hand. The conclave is set for midsummer, she told Wyllis. Will you stand with me to guide them? I will, he said. But remember, I am guide, not lord. The world must steer itself. She smiled. A good guide knows when to let pupils walk. Behind them, Bran watched, eyes shining. The dawn tree leaves unfurled another inch, catching golden light. Snow melted in rings around its sapling trunk, revealing dark soil ready for seed. Tomorrow they would sow more, grain for hungry bellies, ideas for eager minds, promises for wary hearts. The song was still being written verse after verse, but the refrain was clear. Doors once closed are open. Names once feared are spoken. Hope, long exiled, has teeth and a voice. And as long as voices rose in truth, winter would never silence them again. Snowmelt whispered through Winterfell's stones in thin silver rivulets, seeping into mortar, easing ice that had clung there since the first horns of the long night. Spring was not yet a promise fulfilled, merely an idea diffusing through chill air. But the people felt it all the same, and they breathed as though lungs might finally forgive cold. Above the godswood, dawn spilled untroubled gold across a sky no longer haunted by shards of unnatural green. The horizon blushed pink, tender and young, and a thin veil of mist coiled about the towers like a newborn's swaddling cloth. In the clearing of the heart tree, the dawn tree stood 5 feet high already, its bark palest ash streaked with threads of weirwood red, leaves unfurling triangular and delicate. Beneath it knelt Samwell Tarly, cool poised, recording each fresh shoot's length and angle in a thick leather ledger. He muttered measurements, eyes gleaming as though he observed a hatchling dragon rather than a sapling. Beside him crouched Gilly, holding little Sam against her hip while pointing out a cluster of pale buds that shone faintly even in daylight. The child's small fingers reached, brushed a leaf, and where they touched, veins brightened, as though acknowledging the future. Across from them stood Wyllis, arms folded loosely, lantern hooked at his belt though it no longer needed to burn. Lines of light drifted beneath his skin, quiet, living filaments that pulsed in sync with the dawn tree's sap. He listened, not with ears, but with a deeper faculty newly awakened. He could feel the tree dreaming, hear the hum of rootlets seeking stone fissures, smell the faint thrum of sunlight turning to tissue. It was like cradling an infant world, fragile and monumental all at once. He spoke softly. By next fortnight, the trunk will thicken enough to carve sentinel runes. We must inscribe them gently, only a breath of intention, lest we warp its nature. Sam jotted a note. Remember to consult the runic phrasings from the stone panels. No Valyrian incantations near fresh growth. Too much fire imprint. Gilly rocked little Sam. What if someone harms it? I've seen good things broken by envy. Wylis's gaze drifted toward the castle walls where banners of many houses fluttered. Gold roses on green, silver wings on blue, sun-speared sand snake orange, kraken black upon field of iron salt. Watch will be set day and night. Still, we must expect tests. Some hearts fear miracles. A horn sounded then, single, clear, steady. It carried across courtyards, through crowded bailey and up stone steps, summoning all to the first gathering of the conclave. The meeting would not convene inside the hall. Wylis had insisted it be held under open sky, before the dawn tree. As the visitors trudged through wet slush toward the Godswood Gate, Wylis sensed ripples of skepticism, curiosity, dread, all swirling like oiled water in a pond. Jon Snow arrived first, dressed in plain black trimmed with silver thread. Ghost stalked close, fur shedding loose winter clumps. Jon clasped Wylis's forearm. "No swords inside the circle," he reminded. It was a request and a warning both. Wylis inclined his head. Steel invites needless echo. He stepped aside as Sansa advanced, flanked by Brienne and the Vale's Lord Yohn Royce. Sansa's cloak was wolf gray. Pinned at her shoulder a brooch shaped like two leaves, one dire wolf, one dawn tree, intertwined in bronze. When she drew near, Wylis could feel the weight of her resolution. She nodded but did not yet speak. Her eyes scanned every limb, every vantage, searching for threats. After them came Tormund Giantsbane, red beard plaited, wearing a shaggy bearskin half-damp, grin as broad as a battle-axe. Beside him walked Lady Val, hair woven with icicle beads. They greeted Wylis with familiar ease. Tormund clapped his giant shoulder. "Hope your sapling likes piss-poor free-folk humor, big man. We've plenty." "Humor is nourishment," Wylis replied, earning a booming laugh. Footfalls lighter followed. Arya slipped into view wearing leathers the color of twilight. She carried no sword. Needle rested locked in her chamber, replaced now by twin daggers fashioned from wood and dragonglass, small enough to vanish behind wrists. She greeted Wylis with a silent nod, but her eyes darted, reading faces of newcomers. Those newcomers entered in waves. Ser Davos and Princess Shireen, grown lanky and bright-eyed, representing what remained of the Baratheon line. Queen Asha Greyjoy, who insisted on Captain Still, striding with purposeful scowl. Lord Edmure Tully, shoulders stiff beneath river cloth. Prince Corran Martell of Dorne, cloak a spill of crimson sand silk. Ser Robin Arryn, tentative but determined, and Lady Margaery, risen from political ashes, now voice of the Tyrells though Highgarden still smoldered. In memory, behind each head of house walked maesters, scribes, and spearwives. Yet at the Godswood Gate they halted, leaving retinues behind, entering as individuals unguarded. Such was the rule. Power must kneel to possibility. They formed a wide circle around the sapling, boots crunching damp loam. Torches were unlit. Morning sun sufficed. A hush fell as Sansa stepped forward, cloak tails brushing budding grass. She cleared her throat, but before she could speak, the air thrummed, a shiver like harp strings. Bran emerged, rolled by Podrick, whose muscles flexed guiding the carved chair across mud. Bran's eyes shone pale green, but today his face held gentle warmth. Podrick halted within root reach, and Bran's voice carried further than sound. "You gather in a hinge of ages. Stand not as conquerors, nor as beggars, but as stewards. Hear the covenant we renewed." Wylis raised his lantern, though no flame burned. Light unfurled from its panes, weaving a lattice overhead. Sunbeams refracted, scattering motes like dust of stars. Gasps circled the ring. Even stoic Yohn Royce muttered a curse of wonder. Sansa then spoke, words chosen through sleepless nights. "Lords and ladies, captains and priests, free folk and king's blood. Winterfell thanks your answering the call. The Night King lies shattered, yet we are not fools. We know fear can forge anew wherever hearts grow cold. The Dawn Tree behind me is symbol and safeguard, but it cannot flourish if kingdoms splinter again." Asha Greyjoy snorted. "Symbols won't feed islands. What exactly is asked of us?" Jon stepped beside Sansa, That question shapes the day. Each house shall voice their intent, free of intimidation. When all truths lie bare, we will seek accord. Prince Corin raised a brow. And if truths clash like spears? Then we craft spears' hafts into bridges, Wyllis said, voice resonant. Some chuckled, but Lady Marjorie watched him keenly. The floor opened. First spoke Edmure, pleading resources to rebuild Riverrun's levees. Then Asha demanded fishing rights unmolested by Lannister corsairs. Davos urged relief for Storm's End refugees. Jon Royce argued for fortifications along the neck to prevent remaining undead strays crossing. Each petition layered upon the other like timbers without mortar. As tempers warmed, Arya prowled the periphery, senses sharpening. She sniffed trouble in whispers exchanged behind folded arms. Two older maesters, one in gray and black, one chain heavy with iron, kept skirting the tree, eyes flickering, fingers tracing pockets secretive. She drifted closer, silent as drifting leaf. Meanwhile, debate peaked, voices overlapped. Asha accused Reach soldiers of looting Ironborn wreckage. Tyrell envoy retorted about years of reaving. Tormund laughed, patted both backs, telling them to measure grievances by the size of Night King pieces they had slain. Laughter diffused tension, but undercurrent remained, suspicion of miracle. Wyllis lifted his hand. Lantern light brightened, silencing all. Listen not only to each other, but to the ground beneath. It remembers our quarrels, and it trembles. Step with humility, else cracks deepen. A hush followed, deeper, receptive. Then, unexpectedly, hoofbeats thundered through the courtyard. Heads whipped toward the gate where guards stumbled aside as a black dragon descended. Wings folding, claws clanging upon stone. Snow and loose straw burst skyward. Heat rolled off scales. Upon Drogon's back sat Daenerys Stormborn, hair streaming silver in wind. She wore no crown, only riding leathers patched at knee and elbow. When Drogon's talons settled outside the godswood fence, she dismounted, leaving the beast to huff smoke wherein sparks glinted. The circle parted as she approached, boots splashed with ocean salt. Jon's jaw slackened, color fled Sansa's cheeks. Arya froze mid-step, the maester's scheme momentarily forgotten. Only Wyllis inclined slightly, acknowledging a rival predicted by his own dreamings. Daenerys halted at edge of root shadow. If the north builds a dawn, she said, voice calm but edged, the south deserves its share of sunrise. No one answered at first. Then Jon spoke, soft. You found your way home. Home? She repeated, gaze sweeping the lords. A queen without throne, blamed for ash and fire. Yet home is where futures are forged, and I mean to temper mine. She looked to the sapling. I felt its call across black seas. A whisper telling me my dragon's birth was but prologue. Wyllis stepped toward her. Your presence completes a triad. Ice ended, dawn begun, fire returned. But we gather not to enthrone, only to steward. She eyed him, curiosity flickering. And who are you, who wields light yet wears humble cloth? I was stable boy, Wyllis said. I held a door. I became a door. Now I open paths. Recognition dawned in her eyes. Tales had reached even slaver ports. She inclined her head. Then open one for me, doorbearer. Let the world know dragonfire can heal as well as burn. Marjorie stepped forward, voice melodic but strong. Healing requires contrition. Daenerys's jaw tightened. My road is paved in contrition. If the Dawntree bears witness, perhaps you will too. Sansa exhaled, sensing fragile truce. We will take counsel. She gestured Daenerys into the ring. Some lords shifted but none objected openly. The meeting resumed with new complexity. Daenerys pledged Dragonborn patrols over trade routes, Dothraki horse supply convoys for famine regions, and the knowledge of seasoned unsullied engineers to elevate defensive works. In exchange, she sought right to establish a free city on Dragonstone's ruins, haven for ex-slaves, seat not of monarchy but of council, plus an advisory voice in forging the Unified Realms Charter. Debate rekindled, yet a thread of hope wove through. Even Ironborn grudgingly admired might harness to communal ends. The circle discussed until sun-crested midday. Finally, Wylus proposed a recess. Each delegate to break bread together in adjacent glade, sharing salt and roast mutton without servants, to test their talk against hunger. The suggestion was accepted. Soon tables were rolled, kebabs smoked, and conversations softened by ale. Arya used the lull to trail the maesters. She sensed nerves jangling in their gait. Under the old sept arch, they slipped behind a tangle of ivy. She followed, blades sheathed but ready. The elder maester, robe stitched with rust, produced a vial of dark sap, whispering that diluted essence of basilisk blood could retard unnatural growth. The other muttered about world out of balance. As they turned to re-enter the godswood, Arya blocked their path. Seeking to prune the dawn tree? She asked lightly. They startled. The younger swallowed. It is for the realm's safety. The realm can speak for itself, she said, hand resting on dagger hilt. But I speak for the tree. Hand over the vial. Elder's eyes hardened. You are no archmaester.
I'm worse, Arya whispered.
I am consequence. Her stare pinned him. He extended the vial reluctantly. She snatched it, sniffed. Metallic, bitter. She poured contents onto snow where it hissed, scorching turf black. She raised brow. Academic, indeed. Rust-robed maester spat. Sorcerers' pets have no place in governance. Neither do poisoners, she replied, letting silence imply threat. She motioned them back to clearing view, where Wylus conversed with Daenerys. Look, Arya said. Fire and frost share shade. If they can, perhaps scroll-keepers can share too. Maester stalked off, chastened. Arya crushed crystal vial under boot and pocketed shards for later proof. Afternoon matured. Councils reconvened. Sansa unveiled draft charter. A ring of stewardship, with each region electing envoys to meet every new moon. Decisions bound by twin vetoes. One from memory keepers, Bran and eventual successors. One from Dawn Wardens, rotating offices ensuring tree health. Military alliance would be rotational, with dragonflights and free folk rangers patrolling jointly. Questions erupted on taxes, title precedents, harvest quotas. Wylus mediated with diagrams traced in air using strands of light, projecting illusions of scales balancing grain against iron, salt against silk. Children of farmers and sailors among the watchers clapped. Lords considered. Gradually objections softened. Synergy glimmered. Yet news cannot outrun fear. That evening, ravens arrived from Eastwatch Outpost. A ragged band of rangers reported unnatural auroras far across shivering sea and glimpsed pale shapes stalking ruins of Hardhome. The hall fell hush. Was the Night King undone or only dethroned? Bran closed his eyes, seeking. Sweat purled as he murmured, Echo shards gather. Something stirs. Neither king nor white, but will. Daenerys laid hand on Jon's arm. We faced his father. We can face his sons. Wylus considered. I must journey to Grey Waste beyond Frostfangs. The Covenant grants me passage in dreams, but I need anchor in waking world. He looked to Arya. Will you escort? She grinned. I travel lighter than dragons. Tormund slapped his chest. Add a giant's lair. Jon volunteered too, but Sansa shook her head. The realm needs you here to seal accords. Reluctantly, Jon agreed, yet ghost padded after Wylus. The dire wolf would go unstoppable. Preparations began before dawn. Tormund's free folk gathered furs, obsidian axes, sleds. Arya visited old crypt tunnels, retrieving dragonglass arrows tipped with weirwood slivers. Wylus spent hours in silent meditation, skin glowing as he fused lantern light to runes carved upon new walking staff of dawnbark. Bran supplied maps glimpsed from ravens. Daenerys gifted 3 leather pouches of dragonbone dust, residue of ancient fire used to disrupt ice enchantments. On eve of departure, Daenerys approached Wylus in the Godswood. The dragon lay curled outside walls. His eyes tracked but did not threaten. She spoke quietly. People call you Miracle, but miracles can petrify into legend, and legends into shackles. Promise you will return unshackled. I promise, Wylus answered. And you? Promise not to let your conscience freeze while I'm away. She smiled sadly. Heat is my curse. Freezing might grant peace. But I'll try. They clasped forearms. No pledge of vassal or queen, only travelers upon different paths of redemption. Dawn shimmered pale rose as the expedition set forth. Wylus, Arya, Tormund, Val, Ghost, plus a dozen free folk scouts. Snowmelt had turned tracks to sludge, yet sky remained clear. Lords and small folk lined ramparts. Some saluted, others prayed, a few merely watched. Sansa handed Wylus a pouch of northern soil, so you remember home. He tucked it into cloak. Once beyond Winterfell's shadow, Wylus breathed deep. His mind stretched north, feeling tremor lines under permafrost. Somewhere far a pulse answered, slow, heavy, measured like drums in a cave. The Covenant's whisper guided him. Seek the three-faced glacier. He pressed on. 3 days' march passed in montage. Whistling winds, white bears scavenging dead white bones, glacial canyons echoing with ephemeral thunder. At night, Wylus's lantern cast illusions of constellations on snow. Arya traced them, recounting Braavosi star lore. Tormund roared sagas of giants. Val hummed lullabies. Ghost prowled perimeter. On fourth night, the aurora returned. Green ribbons swirling above as if stirred by unseen staff. Beneath their glow, shadows rose from distant ridge. Whites reanimated, yet moving erratically, as though marched by multiple wills fighting each other. They advanced. Arya notched arrow. Wylus spread his arms. Light burst, bathing the field. Whites hesitated, fractures appearing along limbs. Tormund surged forward, axe ripping torsos. Val's spear flashed silver. Ghost leapt, ripping heads. Within minutes, the threat lay still, bodies unmoving, frost sublimating away. No Night King's blue. Instead, faint violet hung in eyes, then faded. Wylus examined shards from shattered chest of one white. They shimmered purple, edges irregular. A new resonance, he murmured. We must hurry. By dawn of sixth day, they reached the three-faced glacier. A colossal spire of ice rising from valley floor, facets reflecting sunrise in blush, amber, and ultramarine. 3 hues merging. At its base, a cave gaped, rimmed with hoarfrost teeth. Cautious, they entered. Inside glowed pale lavender. Walls held embedded bones, woolly mammoth ribs, giant skull fragments, with veins of crystal pulsating faint. At cavern center rose an altar of fused ice stone shaped like 3 overlapping faces. One weirwood visage, one dragon skull, one maester's helm. Above hovered a fragment of blue crystal like the Night King's heart but much larger. Drumming thrums shook air. Arya stepped lightly, studied runes etched in floor. A tri-spiral similar to Dawnstone. It's unfinished, she said. Wylus nodded. Echo shards gather to birth new sovereign. Triumph King, perhaps. Union of knowledge, fire, and frost. He sensed pattern. Resentment of maesters who feared magic, guilt of firebearers, loneliness of children, each feeding fragment. Tormund spat. We'll smash it before it's born. Wylus raised palm. We risk scattering Echo to corners, not ending it. He walked to altar, staff glowing. Covenant demands truth. Here we must speak truths withheld. Val whispered, I fear none. Wylus began. I feared my own mind once, hid behind one word. Yet silence bred greater peril. His lantern brightened. Heartbeat of crystal wavered. Arya stared into trifaces. Memories surfaced. Halls of Red Keep, faces stolen, men killed, regrets sliced. She spoke. I craved death's roll more than life's. I wronged myself. Light flickered. Tormund declared. I call giants dumb, yet mourn they're gone, and I fear being last of my kind. Val confessed sorrow for her sister Ygritte. Ghost howled softly. Perhaps truth of beast world. Light built, crystal cracked, edges dulling. Wylus thrust staff. From its runes poured dawn and dusk mixed. The tri-faces melted into one swirling pool. A roar like crumbling wall shook cavern. Then silence. The crystal dropped in shards, each losing glow. Where altar stood now sprouted a baby tree of lavender bark. Arya touched it. Trunk warm. Wylus smiled. Echo transmuted. Harm turned potential. They gathered shards in satchels. Wylus buried some around sapling, others kept for study. When they exited Glacier, aurora faded. Sky clear, vast. Return journey swift. Buoyed by victory, though not without vigilance. Twice they saw white corpses inert. Once they glimpsed a polar bear with violet eyes that dimmed then winked out, beast collapsing freed. Pulse of echo evidently dissipated. On 10th sunrise, they near Winterfell. From ridge they saw smoke trails, banners, and, astonishing, 2 dragons circling in leisurely dance. Drogon and a young one, scales sea green. Daenerys had coaxed an egg to hatch. Prophecy woven onward. Gates opened. Cheers met expedition. Sansa embraced Arya. Jon clasped Wylus, relief heavy. Bran smiled. Path remains, but step taken. Council reconvened to hear account. Shards placed on table between maesters and lords. Rust-robed maester paled, seeing echoes of his fear embodied. Wylus told of truth spoken. Sansa proposed each region establish circles of confession, safe gatherings where grievances bled before festering. Daenerys offered Dragonflame to bake echo shards into tiles for healing houses, their color shifting with day, reminding people harm can transform. Marjorie proposed gardens planted with Dawntree cousins across Westeros so each land shares duty. Days merged into constructive blur. Reach gardeners graft dawn buds to apple roots. Ironborn shipwrights coat hulls with shard-infused resin that repels barnacles. Free folk teach southern farmers to read storms. Tyrell scribes chronicle the charter's drafting. Dothraki paint horses with spiral glyphs symbolizing union. Under starlight one eve, Jon and Daenerys walked ramparts. They spoke of guilt and forgiveness, of thrones melted and roads untraveled. They did not kiss. Such acts belonged to simpler tales. Instead, they clasped hands, forging friendship of tempered steel. Below, Arya delivered vile shards to Sansa, explaining Maester plot. Sansa convened tribunal. Maesters confessed fear of magic supplanting reason. Council decreed new citadel annex at Winterfell where science and sorcery study side by side. Rust-robed Maester assigned sweeping stables under Wylus's oversight, lesson in humility. Spring's full blush arrived. Snowmelt swollen rivers. Crocus carpets spread. Farmers sowed barley early. Birds nested in towers once silent. Dawntree reached man's height, its lavender bark deepening, leaves edged gold. Wylus inscribed sentinel runes, just a breath, indeed. Midsummer conclave opened with pomp tempered by memory. No crowns, only wreaths of woven wheat. They ratified charter by acclaim. Each envoy pressed palm to Dawntree, swearing guardianship. Bran spoke final blessing. May memory guide vision. Feast followed. Stews of elk and lemon, breads shaped as spirals, beers spiced with mint. Musicians from Bravos played. Tormund attempted Tyrell minuet, mangling steps. Laughter soared, yet Wylus sensed undercurrent. Far to east, deep to south, unknown yesterday's stirring. He met Bran late by Hearttree. We'll shift still, Bran murmured. But spokes hold. Wylus looked at Dawntree leaves gleaming under moon. Let us keep forging new spokes until we'll become star. Every point sharing load. Bran smiled, rare and bright. A star guides travelers. You, Wylus, are northern star for now. Stars fade, Wylus answered. But constellations endure in eyes of those who watch. Weeks later, a raven arrived from Old Town. Archmaester Ambrose announced Citadel expedition to study dawn phenomena. Sansa granted leave, stipulating 1 healer for every scholar. Ships set sail, carrying both quills and bandages. In distant Valyria, tremors shook smokestacks. Rumors of black-winged shapes reached trading skiffs. Daenerys prepared voyages, inviting ambassadors to witness scourged lands healing under dragon fire turned horticulturist. At Winterfell, Sam compiled unified chronicle, The Age of Reforging. He wrote until ink stained every fingertip, chronicling stable boys who became luminaries, queens who became pilgrims, kings abdicated for councils, trees that sang new seasons. One sunset, Arya met Wyllis atop battlements. She carried a small knife carved of dawntree branch, edge wetted on dragonglass dust. "A gift," she said, "for carving doors in stubborn minds." He turned blade in light, admiring shimmer. "I shall use it sparingly. What of you?" "I sail east with Nymeria's heirs," she said, meaning 5 direwolves grown from ghost's litter, gifted to houses in need, to map unknown coasts, the world's bigger than Westeros. "Doors beyond ocean," Wyllis mused. "May you open them." They grasped wrists, wind tousled hair. Swallows darted. Without further word, Arya descended steps to courtyard where a sleek ship awaited, sails stitched with twin shapes, direwolf and dawn leaf. Wyllis watched until horizon swallowed mast. Then he turned, surveying Winterfell. Walls mended, courtyards alive, children chasing ribbons of pollen. He felt Dawntree's roots entwine with his heartbeat, felt Covenant hum gentle lullaby. Yet he knew quiet would not last. Change was constant as breathing. But now the realm breathed together, not in fragmented gasps but collective sigh. He descended to library where Sansa, Daenerys, and Marjorie plotted grain distribution. He joined, offering suggestion to reroute canals. They welcomed him, equal seat among ruling minds. Later, he would mentor young Podrick in runic math, oversee archway reinforcement, teach free folk letters under orchard shade. One night storms lashed. Thunder rolled, but no fear stoked hearts. People gathered under eaves, singing. Wyllis stepped into rain, lantern catching droplets like tiny stars. He looked skyward, lightning winking silver across clouds. For an instant he saw silhouette of shadow dragon weaving between bolts, but felt no dread. World's wildness did not always portend ruin, sometimes only reminder. Of awe, he whispered to Storm, "We hold the door open always." Thunder answered like laughter. Seasons turned. Grain tallied. Charter disputes settled in circles, not battlefields. Dawntree thickened, blossom clusters emitting faint chimes in breeze. Children claimed its seeds tinkle private tunes. Maesters recorded frequencies as healing tones. Dragons nested on cliffs near White Harbor, warming fishermen who exchanged salted cod for shed scales used as roofing tiles. Free folk harpooned sea serpents ravaging shipping lanes, forging camaraderie with islanders. Dorne's desert began improbable greening where shards were buried, coaxing water tables upward. Not all stories ended sweet. Some lords balked at loss of absolutism, raising minor rebellions. Wyllis's diplomacy and Daenerys's dragons quelled them, but scars reminded that unity demanded vigilance. Far east, slavers tried reviving chain markets. Arya's fleet torched pens, leaving survivors sustenance and scrolls teaching agriculture instead of bondage. Years progressed. Wyllis aged slower than peers, dawnlight sustaining flesh. He attended funerals. Tormund fell in glorious brawl against kraken spawned by sorcerers. Bran passed into weirwood dream unending. Sansa grayed but reigned wise. He welcomed new leaders, Shireen as Scholar Queen of Stormhold, Little Sam as Archkeeper of Circle, Val as North's ambassador to Dorne. In 12th year after Dawntree's planting, a comet streaked violet across sky. Scholars feared omen. Wyllis climbed tower, lantern bright. He traced comet's arc, reading tremor in cosmic tide. Not doom, but beckoning. Something awaited beyond summer sea. Maybe echo of triglacier synergy, maybe call of outer forces. He convened council, now matured institution. They voted to send envoys, not armies. When fleet sailed, Wyllis stayed, guiding from route network through Dreamwalk. He felt his mind expanding along route line across seas, through soils unknown, conversing with hearts of foreign forests. One night he faded mid-talk, lanterns slipping from table. Maesters rushed. Breath still issued, but pulse low. They carried him to Dawntree where blossoms glowed like lanterns themselves. He murmured final instruction. Doors must remain open. Then light within him brightened, suffusing trunk, climbing branches, exploding in crescendo of luminescence that painted midnight sky gold. When glow subsided, his body was gone. On branch hung new fruit, golden seed teardrops trembling. People knelt in silence, tears mingling with dew. Sansa, elderly, hair silver, whispered, "He is tree now, and tree is guardian." Jon, lines etched deeper on face but eyes bright, replied, "And we are its leaves." Years later, children asked why Winterfell nights sometimes shimmer even without torches. Elders told tales of stable boy who became door and star. They said when you stand beneath Dawntree and speak truth, leaves will answer in gentle chime, guiding you home. Some swore they'd glimpsed a giant silhouette walking moonbeams across battlements. Dawntree seeds spread across continents. Jungles blooming lilac, deserts sprouting oasis groves, islands ringed by singing petals. Each seed carried echo of covenant. Life for passage, truth for power, seed for sunrise. Through them Wylis's wisdom-threaded world, living network, unseen yet felt. Wars still happened, storms still ravaged, dragons sometimes quarreled, men still coveted gold. But whenever darkness rose too high, leaves whispered, lantern light awakened in hearts, doors opened between fear and understanding. And though centuries will churn, bards will recall age of reforging, when hope grew teeth and spoke. Ghost, for now ghostlier with age, wandered godswood evenings, curling beneath Dawntree whose roots exuded warmth even in snowfall. Some nights watchers heard paws pacing frost-hushed courtyards, as if guarding door between worlds. They said when Ghost finally lay still forever, stars blinked brighter in formation of direwolf, tail entwined with spiral of dawn leaf. Constellations indeed endure, and so the wheel became star, every spoke shining. Not because hate vanished, but because doors remained open, allowing light and shadow to converse, transform, and begin again.